Welcome friends, it's Ray. Thank you so much for joining me today. This is one of several videos that will feature how I use up tons of white paper scraps. If you're like me, you've got a lot of them. There is a playlist link below if you want to go back and watch the prior video. Okay, so I started with a panel cut to 4 inches wide, and I will trim that down, and then a strip that I cut off of the side to make it 4 inches wide. Okay, and then I am going to cut this to 5 1/4. So this was a scrap piece of paper. I've got a few scraps left. Bringing in an arch die, and we'll run this through my die cutting machine. And when die cutting and wanting a white panel, you know, one that I'm not going to necessarily treat with anything, I will put a just a blank half sheet of copy paper on top before running this through my die cutting machine. Next, I'm going to use this Spellbinders nautical themed embossing folder, 3D embossing folder. This one's called Castaway, and I am going to run this through my die cutting machine to emboss it. I am using pattern paper and other items from the Simon Says Stamp July kit. Yeah, I like that. Let's see, that's too far over. And so what I was doing is going through my leftover pattern paper pieces just to kind of see what I had left over and which one I might want to use. I trimmed my pattern paper down to fit behind my arched panel. I'm going to bring in some scrap strips here, and am going to trim or cut them down to 1/8 inch strips. I just placed a piece of post-it note paper on the back of a piece of copy paper, and then affixed my strip to it, and am going to then line this up so that I can cut off 1/8 inch strips by moving my copy paper to the 1/8 inch mark. So a portion of my video was corrupt. I had to cut it out, and but what I'm doing here is taking my 1/8 inch strips and just lining them up on a diagonal on the back of my arched panel, and adding some double-sided tape on either end to affix them to my panel. This panel is a very loose lattice, just with a few strips, and so I am just alternating weaving over top and underneath to finish this panel. Let me know in the comments if you found creative ways to use all of the scraps that you save. I'm trimming off that excess around my archway, and then adding some double-sided foam tape to pop this panel up. Before deciding to add foam tape to the back, I had placed some double-sided tape on my focal image. So I just removed that release paper, and then with the foam tape here, I have partially released the foam tape so that I can position this on my focal image and then remove the remaining release tape. And didn't line it up so perfectly, so I am using my scissors to just trim off the top of that panel, and now I'm placing some double-sided tape just in areas where there is no adhesive, so that I can go ahead and place this panel on my card base. Okay, added a little liquid adhesive there. Just gives me time to get it positioned on the card base before committing that. I'm using these Paper Rose Studios All Occasion Sentiment sheets, and I've cut out a thanks, and then I'm just going to take a dark gray marker and just remove the white from the edges. So line that in dark. Here I'm finishing this card off with some soft sequin mix. Here I'm cutting some scraps down into 1/2-inch strips. This card is a 5x7 card. I've cut my vellum piece to 5 1/4 by 7 1/4, and I'm bringing in my 1/2-inch strips using my well-loved Make Art board and just using those magnets to affix my 1/2-inch strips on an angle over top my vellum. I keep adding my 1-inch strips until I fill or cover all of my vellum panel. Here I'm adding some low-tack mint tape just to hold everything or all those strips in place. I've removed some of my upper magnets so that I can feed or weave my 1/2-inch strip underneath and over top each card strip base, if you will. So I'm weaving those, and then we'll add some liquid glue as I go to hold those strips into place. I'm going to continue weaving and weaving these strips through my main set of strips, or the first set of strips that I laid down, and then adding that liquid adhesive. I'm going to continue this off camera and come back and then show you what I do with my finished panel. And here I have almost finished my panel, and I'm going to lift that up and then go ahead and trim down, trim off the edges so that I am just left with those pieces that are over top my 5 1/4 by 7 1/4 inch piece of vellum. Next, I will go ahead and add liquid adhesive behind the vellum directly on the strips, the 1/2-inch strips, just to finish affixing this. So here I am bringing in the strips that I cut off of my other sides of this piece and using those to finish up or finish adding to the rest of my panel. And then once I finish that, I will come back. I'm going to just use my shears to cut off some of this excess. I'm bringing in a frame die to cut my panel out. And yes, this is pretty heavy cardstock, so it does not cut all the way. It does a really good job. I do have to finish trimming this with my shears. I cut out a frame for this panel, and I'm adding liquid glue around the perimeter so that I can affix my frame. And here I'm bringing in my focal image that I had popped up on foam tape, and this is from the July Simon kit, and I've paper pieced those elements together from some of the pattern paper in the kit, and I brought in some leaves from my stash, and am going to go ahead and affix those with liquid glue to the side of that focal image. I finished adding my leaves, added my panel to my card base, added my sentiment from that same kit, and then I'm bringing in some sequins from my stash to finish off this card. I love the way this card turned out, and I used a ton of scraps. Here's a closer look at both cards I made in today's video. As always, thank you so much for joining me today. I hope you liked the video, and if not a subscriber, will subscribe and give me a thumbs up. Until next time, good day, friends.